everyone, Cleo here, and today I'm going over my February wrap-up. So I did not do super well in terms of numbers in the month of February, and I've been slumping a little bit in the second half of the month, but you know, compared to most people it's still definitely good. And there's one redeeming quality, and that is that according to me I have my first 5-star read of the month, of the year. I don't think I had a 5-star in January. I will correct myself on the screen if that turns out to be a total lie. But in any case, a 5-star is a positive thing regardless. So even if this is not my first 5-star, it is still a redeeming quality to this month. But so, let's just get into it. February is like, I think it started towards the ending of January where I was just like in a creative slump. I did not film anything new, I did not post any videos, I was only sprinting, and I'm still a little bit in that slump, so this is like real push for myself to film at this point in time, and so I don't even know when I will be finally editing this video, when you guys will be finally seeing it. But yeah, I am in a little bit of a slump in that sense, and then this also kind of translated to my reading at certain points. First book that I finished this month was Crying in H Mart by Michelle Zauner. So this is a memoir. It is a memoir by a Korean American woman who is dealing with the loss of her mother. So her mother has recently passed away, and most of this book explores the relationship she had with her mother, but also the the grieving process, the complexity of that relationship, but also the complexity of her relationship to her Korean heritage, especially now that her sort of less direct link to her Korean heritage, to her Korean lineages has kind of disappeared. So she's kind of struggling with her Koreanness at this point in time, and trying to find ways to connect with that heritage now that her mother is no longer there. And I definitely had a good time with this one, but I was expecting to have a great time with this one. I was expecting to be blown away, to have an absolutely amazing time with it, and it was just a good read for me. It didn't surpass that, unfortunately, perhaps because I was building it up too much, because I'd seen quite a lot of buzz for this one. But so, still a great read. I should still say, if this sounds interesting to you, definitely pick it up and you might love it. For me, I just didn't have as much of an emotional connection as I would have loved to have. Next up is my great achievement for this month. We were off to a good start this month, and then I just kind of slacked off towards the latter half of it. But before the midway section of this month, I had finished 3 books, 2 of which were the only 3 on my TBR for this month. The third book on my TBR I didn't finish. But so the big success for this month is Ship of Magic by Robin Hobb. I finished this one on holiday, and it was a wild ride, an amazing ride, a 5-star read. Probably gonna end up on one of my, on the top books of 2023 list, or one of its sequels will. But this is the first book in the Live Ship Traders trilogy, which is in principle the second book to the Realm of the Elderling series. However, you can start with this one. You don't have to start with the Farseer trilogy, because Farseer trilogy takes place in a different part of the world than this one does. This one is much more of a maritime based culture. So we start off the story specifically with this family which owns a live ship, and basically when 3 generations of captains have died on board of the live ship, the ship will come alive, the figurehead will be given life, and the figurehead kind of gathers some of the essence of the people who have previously captained the ship, and so from that point onwards it's a sentient ship. And so this is about to happen. The current owner of the ship is not in good health anymore, and so it is expected that he will pass away and the ship will pass on to his daughter. However, complications arise. Now, I absolutely adored this one. There were so many characters that I grew to love throughout this one. There were so many characters that I grew to loathe throughout this one. I was just completely engaged the whole way through, wanted to know what was coming next, and so yeah, I absolutely had a great time with this one. I think I even enjoyed it more than Farseer, because we have multiple perspectives, and so the same amount of page length is divided across multiple perspectives, compared to the Fitz books where you have to where you have to be tormented alongside Fitz for the entire length of the pages. But so yeah, absolutely adored this one. Wanted to dive straight into the next one, didn't do so. First of all, because this is a series that I'm reading to my library, so I didn't have the next one, but also because I do want to be able to kind of distinguish between the different books, and if I read them one after the other, then that doesn't really happen in my brain. So I was like, let's just keep a little bit of a break between them. The next book that I finished was A Psalm for the Wild Build by Becky Chambers. So this is a book that I read for the Howling Pack, which is hosted by Sasha from the channel The Wild Sasha. Now this is a novella basically, it's a cozy sci-fi. In this world there are robots, and at one point in time they became sentient, so they kind of became persons as such, and so a bargain was kind of struck in which the robots would kind of disappear from, you know, general life. They wanted to live more secluded, they wanted to find their own sort of like purpose, their own agency, and so humans haven't really seen robots for decades at this point in time. And then we are following our protagonist, who is just living in the city and who has been doing a certain job for a while, but at some point just felt like he needed a change of pace, and so he set out to become a tea monk, which is basically somebody who kind of goes around from village to village and kind of listens to people in their problems and then kind of offers them, you know, a listening ear and a little bit of soothing therapy in the form of a perfect blend of tea. And so it's very much cozy, as I said. It's all about, you know, tea and, you know, therapy and you know, like compassion and all of those things. And at one point in time he kind of still isn't satisfied with where his life is currently at, and so he decides to kind of go into the mountains, and there he discovers a robot. You know, I definitely enjoyed this one, and it's definitely a 4-star read. I think if I would have read this at like that perfect time for me, then maybe it could have gone to that 5-star read you know, status, but at this point in time it wasn't necessarily the book that I needed at that point in time. It wasn't necessarily in need of a warm hug at that point in time, and so it's just one that I really appreciated and really had a good time with, but it doesn't really stand out in my mind neither at this point in time. But I am gonna continue, and I'm hopefully already gonna read the sequel next month. And then the final thing that I managed to finish this month was for Cat Lady Readathon, which is a readathon hosted by Leanna from the channel Leanna Reads. And for this one I read Before Your Memory Fades, the third book in the Before the Coffee Gets Cold series. Basically you can either read a book that features cats or one that has a cat on the cover, which is the only link to cats that this book has because there are no cats in it. So this is the third one in the series, but the books are kind of companion books, and definitely in this case you can kind of read them without having read the other ones. You will have, like, you will miss some backstories to some of these sort of like regular characters in this series, but all of the rules about time travel and stuff like that are explained, because in this one basically the first one follows a cafe in Tokyo where you can travel back in time. However, there are a set of rules, one of them being that whatever you do in the past or future, it won't have an impact on your present. Another one being that you have to get back before your coffee gets cold, or otherwise you will be stuck in the past or the future. So this third one definitely still is the same sort of formula. It works the same way that the first two did. We have a different kind of location, we have new stories to delve into. A lot of these stories had to deal with grief, more so than in the other two books, I feel like. I feel like there was a wider variety of thematics in those two. I did also enjoy like an element of a book that people were reading, a book that kind of presents extreme scenarios and then makes you contemplate what choice you would make, and so the choices of our characters are very interesting to explore. However, I am kind of done with this format. I did definitely still cry with certain of these stories, but the constant repetition of the rules of time traveling by this stage are becoming quite tiresome. And you know, I just didn't have as much of an emotional connection with it. Was it because of the time in which I was reading it? Was I not in the mood for this one? I don't know, but typically when I read these before, you know, I would get sucked into them, into that emotion, and now it felt more like a obligation for me to just like continue turning the page. So I definitely did still have emotional reactions to this one, so it definitely is still a successful formula, but because of the fact that it's just a repetition of a formula that I've experienced twice already, I just feel like, you know, I'm over it at this point in time. And that is it. That is all that I managed to finish at this point in time. I think that left my TBR down to 21 if I remember correctly. I will have the correct number on the screen at any point. I am currently reading like 5 books at the same time, and as I said earlier, in the second half of the month, just it wasn't going well. You know, the only thing I finished there is Before Your Memory Fades, and all the rest I basically just, I continued reading. I don't think there are many days in which I wasn't reading at all, but just to give you an indication, there's a weekend, a full weekend in which I did no reading, and it wasn't because I had too many plans. I was just not reaching for books. But I did most of the day still kind of read. I just read very little, was just reading on my commute a lot of the time, for example, and then outside of that I was not necessarily picking anything up. Yeah, I'm just not really feeling it at this moment, and I'm hoping that at some point it will come back. But yeah, I am also more focused right now on watching gymnastics because it's gymnastics seasons, and you know, trying to watch as many Oscar movies as possible before the Oscar award ceremony. So there are definitely a few things just like vying for my attention at this point in time, and so reading is just not one of the highest priorities at this moment, but you know, it will come back. But so yeah, we'll see what the month of March ends up bringing me. I have drastically reduced the expectations I'm putting on myself for that month, so I'm only really like putting one book on the top of my priority list. If I get that one done, then it doesn't matter what else I pick up in the month. I don't need to do the ones that I initially set out to read in the month of March. I can just kind of mood read, I guess. So we'll see, and hopefully I will be able to bring you some videos as well in future, because at the moment the creative juices are not flowing. I am not filming, I am not editing. So yeah, thank you guys for sticking with me. Hope you guys enjoyed this video, and see you guys for the next one. Bye!